Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson and welcome to this week's Health According to the Scriptures. This week we're talking about Exodus 33:11 to 34:35. Now there's so much in this week's teaching. I couldn't possibly cover it all here in this quick video, but I encourage everyone to go there and read it because it's so important, because this week is about instructions that Yahweh gave the people in the desert, the believers in the desert, to start setting up the community of what to do and how to keep it holy. And we see here, just like today, back then, we see the people beginning to go away from Yahweh and having their doubts. You see, Moses was chosen by Yahweh to lead the people, and the people weren't listening to the leader. And when you have that happening, you have big problems. Today, Yeshua is our guide and our leader, and people are not listening to what he told them to do. Yeshua told people to follow the instructions and the guideline of our Creator Yahweh. It's also known as Torah. That's the first 5 books of your scriptures. And that's what Yeshua told people to do. And today we see people not listening to the words of Yeshua. You know, you see all these bumper stickers around that say, what would Yeshua do, or what would Jesus do? Well, he certainly wouldn't do what many people are doing today that have those stickers, because he gave them instructions. That he was known as the living Torah, the living guidelines, the living model of how we should model our life and what we should do. Well, where did the problem begin? We see the problem right here in this week's reading. You had Moses getting direct instructions from Yahweh, and he gave them to Moses and told the people this is what they need to do, and this is how they need to follow these instructions. And the people went so far against these instructions that Yahweh burned with anger and said, I don't even want to see them. As a matter of fact, he told Moses when he was up on the mountain, he said, your people have disobeyed my instructions. Your people are doing terrible sins against me. He didn't even say my people. He was so upset with them. And Moses went down and told them, what have you done? You have sinned so greatly. But here's the amazing thing. What Yahweh says will happen, will happen. At the beginning of this week's reading, we see Yahweh telling the people exactly what needs to be done and how to do it. He told the priest how to dress. He told the people how to prepare the camp. He told them exactly what to do. But then the leader went away for a little while. Moses went up to the mountain and the people were alone. But what happened? Since the words of Yahweh were not in their heart and the leader was not there to watch over them, the people started to commit great sins against Yahweh. Yahweh's warning to those people, after giving them the instructions exactly what to do and how to do it, he also told them what the consequences will be if they don't do it. Now, before we look at these consequences, understand these weren't just, people that Yahweh told what to do and left them alone. It says that the Spirit of Yahweh was dwelling inside these people. Yahweh put His Spirit within these people and gave these people His instructions. And still they disobeyed Him. Just like today, we have His instructions, we have His Spirit, but we still disobey Him because we do not have His teachings, His guideline, His Torah on our heart. Understand, when Jeremiah came and said, I give them a new covenant, he wasn't doing away with the old covenant. He wasn't saying, well, that's no longer important. He was moving it. It was so important, he was taking it from stones and he was putting it on our hearts, because it must be near our heart. The original instructions that Yahweh gave us and said keep through all your generations were never done away with. And Yahweh said, throughout all your generations, keep these instructions. And to help us, He said, I will take these off stone and I will put them right on your heart. You see, Yahweh wrote with His own hand the first commandments right to Moses and brought them down, and then the people still didn't follow it. But then Yahweh put it on our hearts, or at least He wants it to be on our hearts. And He told us the consequences if we don't follow His instructions exactly, what's going to happen. There's 3 specific things He told us in this week's reading. The first thing He told us was, He said, if they do not follow my instructions, a plague will strike them. And the other 2 things, there were 3 things. First, He told them if they do not follow my instructions, a plague will strike them. The next thing He said was, death will occur among them. Now, we're all going to die eventually, but we can die much sooner before our appointed time if we don't follow his plan and his instructions. It clearly shows us that in Scripture. And then finally it says the people will be cut off from the community. Now what community are we talking about? We're talking about the community of Yahweh, the community of the believers. So there's 3 consequences if the people went away from Yahweh's exact instructions that he told us to keep throughout all our generations in this week's reading. We look at a plague would strike them, death would occur among them, and the people would be cut off from the community. Now, we look at today, we can look back at that time exactly what happened. The people disobeyed Yahweh. They made a golden calf, and started making sacrifices and burnt offerings to this golden calf where Yahweh said, never have a god of metal. Never have an idol. Never have any other gods but me. But the people did not listen, and they suffered with exactly the way Yahweh told them would. A plague did strike them. The people were put to death. As a matter of fact, by the hand of Moses and the priest, they put 3,000 people to death in this week's reading. So the people left Egypt. They left the slavery of Egypt. But Egypt didn't leave them, and they kept the ways. And Yahweh said, we have to destroy the root. And he told Moses to tell the people that are on my side to destroy the people who aren't. So in the desert this week we see Moses had 3,000 people destroyed, killed. Not because he wanted to do it, not because he decided this is what's going to be done, because Yahweh warned them and told them, if you do not listen to me, death will come among you. He showed us an example, and he always shows an example through his priest of what we're to do and how we're to live. And he shows us the priest who have the holiest and the highest instructions. He said, if you do not follow this, this is what will happen. And we look at Aaron's sons, and we look exactly what happened, because they not only did not follow his instructions, but they made a joke of his instructions. Today, we are Yahweh's priests, and people are dying before their time because they're making a joke of Yahweh's instructions. A plague has come among us. Many plagues have come among us today. People are dying before their time. And then finally, it says in the third thing, people will be cut off from their community. Yahweh wants to keep the root of the community pure, and he does not want it to be destroyed. So he shows us in an example, in his Torah, in his guidelines and instructions, exactly what will happen. He says, what I say will happen. Everything I say shall come to pass. And he says, if they did not do things according to his instructions, they will be cut off from the community. And that's exactly what happened this week, and they were cut off from the community. That's exactly what happened. So we have to see this very important message this week, and we need to continue and study the information in Torah, in the Scriptures, all of the Scriptures, not only once. Most people have never read all the Scriptures, but we have to continually read them over and over again. It's sick and abomination to Yahweh today that people know the words of a secular song more than they know Yahweh's word. People know the characters of TV shows and movies today more than they know the characters of Scripture. Yahweh's anger was blazing this week at the people so much in this week's readings and teaching that he says, I do not even want to be among them, because if I am, none of them will survive. And Moses pleaded with him, please keep your promise, Yahweh. Please do not go back on us. Do not destroy us all. And in Yahweh's wonderful mercy, he said, go Moses, I will give you an angel to lead you, but I do not want to be there, because I cannot stand to see the people and what they're doing. So we have to see in Yahweh's mercy, he's letting us survive today. But he cannot stand to see us go against his words. And he tells us the consequences we're going to suffer. Yahweh says if we follow his instructions and we follow his guidelines, we will be blessed. We will be blessed. You see, he had a plan for us, and as long as we stick to the plan, we get the outcome that he had for us. But if you change any part of the plan, as it says in Scripture, do not change, add, or subtract to any of my words. If you do not change it, the outcome will be there. If you change it, the outcome will change. Yahweh had a designed outcome for us as long as we stick to his guidelines and instructions. If you're a computer program out there, if you change one little dot on that computer program, do not mess up the whole program. If you're a musician out there, if you change one music note on the program, do not mess up the sound. Well, if you change one thing Yahweh told us to do, you mess up the outcome that he had in mind for us. But if you stick to it, you'll be blessed with long life, peace, and shalom. What a great thing that is. All right, everybody, this was Paul Neeson with this week's teaching on health in the scriptures. And I pray that everyone has a wonderful week, and Yahweh bless you all.
Come out of the world, oh my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's ways. Torah Life Ministries, come